Derek had been looking forward to this day all week. The skate park was his escape, a place where he could express himself, push his limits, and forget about everything else. He had woken up early, laced up his shoes, and grabbed his skateboard with excitement. But the moment he arrived, everything changed. He had barely warmed up when Todd, the park employee, stomped toward him. "Hey, you!" Todd's voice cut through the air like a slap. "You can't skate here!" Derek paused mid-trick, his heart skipping a beat. "What do you mean?" he asked, breathless. "I've been coming here for months." Todd crossed his arms. "I don't care if you've been here before. You're not skating today. Pack it up." Derek's chest tightened. He glanced around, watching the other skaters, mostly white, continuing to practice their tricks, completely unbothered. None of them were being told to leave. None of them were being questioned. Just him. "Why? What did I do?" Derek's voice was steady, but inside, frustration bubbled. He knew what this was, even if Todd refused to say it out loud. Todd smirked, shaking his head. "We've had complaints. Some of the regulars aren't comfortable." "Complaints?" Derek's fingers curled around his skateboard. "I didn't do anything wrong." Todd shrugged. "Rules are rules." Derek clenched his jaw. He wanted to argue, to demand an explanation that actually made sense, but he knew how this worked. If he pushed too hard, he'd be the one painted as the troublemaker. So he swallowed the anger burning in his throat, grabbed his board, and walked away. His feet dragged as he left the park, his confidence crumbling with each step. This was supposed to be his day. Now, all he felt was humiliation. Derek's hands tightened around his skateboard as he walked away, his feet dragging against the pavement. His heart pounded with a mix of anger and frustration. He had been skating at this park for months, pushing himself to get better, perfecting every trick, yet today, without warning, he had been singled out and thrown out like he didn't belong. He dropped onto a nearby bench, staring down at the scuffed surface of his board. His fingers traced the scratches along its edge, each mark a reminder of the hours he had spent practicing, falling, getting back up. It wasn't just a hobby to him, it was freedom. But today, that freedom had been stolen. The sound of wheels grinding against rails and laughter filled the air behind him. He turned his head slightly, watching as the other skaters continued their tricks, untouched, unbothered. Nobody had been told to leave except him. He wasn't being paranoid. He had seen it in Todd's eyes, the way he looked at him, the way he didn't even try to give a real reason. Derek pulled out his phone and quickly texted his best friend, Marcus. Derek, "Dude, they kicked me out of the park for no reason." Marcus, "Wait, what?" Derek, "Said they got complaints, but I'm the only one who had to leave." Marcus, "You know what that means, man." Derek, "Yeah, I know." He let out a sharp breath and leaned back against the bench, gripping his board as if it was the only thing grounding him. His mother had always told him to pick his battles, to rise above ignorance, but sitting there, listening to the carefree cheers of kids who didn't have to second-guess why they were welcome, it stung. He looked back at the park one last time. A few of the other skaters he had seen earlier, ones who looked like him, were also gone. Had they been pushed out too? Had they seen what happened and left on their own? Either way, the message was clear. This place wasn't meant for him. The humiliation was suffocating. He wanted to let it go, to act like it didn't matter. But the truth was, it did. This wasn't just about skating. This was about something bigger, something unfair. He had worked hard to earn his place at that park, just like everyone else, and yet, a single moment, a single man's decision, had ripped it away. He exhaled slowly, forcing himself to stay calm. He wouldn't let this break him, but he also wasn't going to let it slide. Jordan extended a hand to Derek, helping him up from the bench. The younger skater hesitated for a second, still feeling the sting of humiliation, but something about Jordan's confidence reassured him. As they walked back toward the skate park, the crowd started to take notice. Phones came out, whispers spread, and even Todd, The park employee who had thrown Derek out looked uneasy. Jordan stepped onto the pavement, flipping his skateboard onto the ground with a practiced ease. "So, let me get this straight," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "You've been skating here for months, and today, for no reason, you got told to leave?" Derek nodded. "Yeah." He said there were complaints, but I was the only one asked to go. Jordan's eyes flickered with understanding, and he turned toward Todd. "Hey man, is that true?" Todd shifted uncomfortably under the weight of everyone's stares. "It's park policy," he stammered. "We get to decide who stays and who goes." Jordan scoffed. "Interesting, because last I checked, skate parks are for skaters, right? Or do you have some kind of unwritten rule about who's allowed here?" Todd's face turned red, but before he could come up with an excuse, Jordan turned to Derek with a smirk. "How about this? You and me right now. Let's see what you got." Derek's eyes widened. "You want me to skate with you?" "Yeah," Jordan grinned. "I want to see what the guy they kicked out is made of." The crowd erupted in cheers, and Derek felt the weight of the moment. He had looked up to Jordan for years, watching his videos, learning his tricks. Now, he was being given a chance to prove himself in front of everyone. He nodded, took a deep breath, and rolled his board onto the pavement. Jordan kicked off first, smoothly executing a series of tricks that left the audience in awe. But then Derek followed, dropping into the bowl with confidence. The nerves melted away as he nailed a clean kickflip, followed by a perfect grind along the rail. The crowd roared, and for the first time that day, Derek felt like he belonged again. Jordan whooped in excitement. "Now that's what I'm talking about." He skated over to Derek and clapped him on the back. "This kid belongs here more than anyone." Todd, realizing he was outnumbered and exposed, muttered something under his breath and quickly walked away. The park, now fully behind Derek, erupted in cheers. Jordan turned to the cameras that had been filming the entire thing. "To anyone watching, this is what skateboarding is about: community, respect, and skill, not judgment." Derek smiled, his confidence restored. He had come to the park that day expecting a regular skate session, but he was walking away with something much bigger, a moment that would change everything. Jordan turned to Derek with a reassuring nod, then stepped onto his skateboard. With a smooth kick, he glided across the pavement, pulling off an effortless flip trick that sent the crowd into a frenzy. The moment wasn't just about the tricks, it was about sending a message. Derek, now feeling a newfound confidence, followed suit, gripping his board and rolling onto the park with a renewed sense of purpose. The energy shifted instantly. The other skaters, inspired by Jordan's bold stance, started cheering for Derek instead of ignoring him. A few of them even joined in, skating alongside him, making it clear that he was part of the community. Derek dropped into the bowl, executing a clean trick that had the audience clapping and shouting in encouragement. Jordan skated beside him, grinning. "That's what I'm talking about. You got this, man." Todd, realizing that he had lost control of the situation, crossed his arms and scowled. "This isn't how things work here," he muttered. Jordan skated right up to him, coming to a sharp stop just inches away. "Nah, Todd. This is exactly how things should work here. Everyone deserves a chance to skate without being judged." His voice was cool, but the weight behind it was undeniable. "You can either be part of that, or you can be the guy who got put in his place by the entire community." The crowd erupted in agreement, making it clear that Todd had no allies left in this battle. He turned away, clearly embarrassed, and stormed off toward the park's office. But the moment wasn't about him anymore. It was about Derek reclaiming his place, about proving that no one had the right to decide who belonged and who didn't. As the sun started to set, Jordan patted Derek on the shoulder. "You just showed everyone what you're made of," he said with a proud grin. "And trust me, this is only the beginning." Derek smiled, his heart racing in the best way possible. He had walked into that skate park feeling like an outsider, but now, he knew, he had always belonged. Derek, still absorbing the support around him, took a deep breath and dropped into the bowl with a newfound determination. His board glided effortlessly, the wheels humming against the concrete as he executed a smooth kickflip, landing perfectly. The crowd erupted in cheers, clapping and hollering as if they had just witnessed a professional competition. Jordan, skating beside him, laughed and gave him a nod of approval. "That's what I'm talking about, man. You belong here," Jordan said, his voice carrying over the excitement. The other skaters, previously indifferent or hesitant, now actively encouraged Derek. A few came up to him, slapping him on the back, complimenting his skills, and even asking him for tips. It was a stark contrast to the cold dismissal he had received just an hour before. Derek could hardly believe it. He had gone from being pushed out to being embraced, all because one person decided to stand up for him. Then, something even more unexpected happened. One of the older skaters, a guy named Alex, walked up with a can of spray paint and pointed to a blank section of the skatepark's main wall. "We should make it official," he said, shaking the can with a grin. Jordan smirked and nodded. "Go for it." With a few quick strokes, Alex tagged a phrase onto the wall in bold, bright letters. "Derek rides here." The crowd cheered again, and Derek felt something inside him shift. He wasn't just accepted now, he was part of something bigger. Todd, who had been lurking at the edge of the park, scoffed and muttered under his breath. He turned to one of the other staff members. "We should take that down." The staff member shook his head. "We shouldn't." Todd frowned, but said nothing. The message was clear. His outdated mindset wasn't going to be tolerated anymore. As the sun started to set, Derek looked around at the sea of faces, all of them filled with support and admiration. The same park where he had been humiliated was now a place where he felt at home. Jordan clapped a hand on Derek's shoulder. "This is your space now. Own it." And for the first time, Derek truly believed he did. Derek's life had taken a complete turn. What started as a humiliating moment had become the defining breakthrough of his young life. The video of Jordan standing up for him had made waves across social media, garnering millions of views. People from all over sent messages of support, telling Derek how much his story meant to them. Many young skaters, especially those from minority backgrounds, reached out, sharing their own experiences of discrimination and thanking him for showing them they weren't alone. One day, while scrolling through his messages, Derek received an email that made his heart race. It was from a major skateboarding brand, one of the very ones that Jordan endorsed. They were offering him a sponsorship deal. It was more than just free gear. They wanted to feature him in their next campaign, a project focused on diversity and representation in the skating community. He couldn't believe it. Just weeks ago, he had been kicked out of the skate park, humiliated, and made to feel like an outsider. Now, that very experience had catapulted him into an opportunity most skaters could only dream of. At a community event held at the skate park, Derek stood on stage, looking at the faces of people who had once overlooked him. Now, they were all listening. Jordan stood beside him, a proud mentor. The energy in the air was electric, charged with the power of change. "All it takes is one person to make a difference," Derek said into the mic, his voice steady and confident. "Sometimes that person is someone with influence, like Jordan, but sometimes that person is you. Stand up, speak out, never let anyone tell you that you don't belong." The crowd erupted in cheers, and Derek grinned, knowing he had turned his pain into something bigger than himself. As the sun dipped below the horizon, he grabbed his board and dropped into the park, surrounded by skaters who had once ignored him. Now, they followed his lead. The final shot showed Derek in his element, soaring off a ramp, his silhouette framed against the sky.